Hey there, everyone. It's Bijal. We are back for another, what I believe is going to be not only an exciting, but very deep and interesting interview. I have with me Veenu Keller. She is a family slash parenting coach, advisor, mentor. She is she's been working in the industry, God, for over, how many, 25 years, Veenu? Is that correct? You've been doing this work? That's amazing. But more importantly, if someone's asking, well, what qualifications do you have to give parenting advice? How many kids do you have?
I have 6 and a granddaughter.
And ranging from what age to what age? Because we're going to cover the whole gamut here. So we want to make sure that whether it's kids, teens, young adults, that you can speak to all of the above.
Yes. So my oldest is 28, and he's the one, him and his wife blessed me with a 4-year-old granddaughter. And then I have a 23-year-old. My stepdaughters are 17 and 14. And then I have 9-year-old twins, boy-girl twins.
Great. So we're going to be speaking across the board and how advice changes or doesn't change, through these age ranges. But you're also a trainer with Tony Robbins, and you're a coaching instructor for Joseph Macledon. So if you have been to any of Tony's events, you may have seen Joseph Macledon III on stage with Tony, and you are one of his instructors for his new Neuro program. So you have not only do you have experience from a parent's perspective, a parenting and family advisor perspective, but also from a kind of coaching and instructor. So we have a complete package. So let's just dive into it. Vinu, how and why did you get into this work?
So, my family, I'm from California originally. My parents had an arranged marriage in India. And when they came back to this, when Dad brought my mom back to the States, they had my brother and I. So we were the first generation here. My parents divorced and my mom raised us. And I watched my mom work 2 jobs, put herself through law school in order to give us a better lifestyle in California. But during my childhood, what she didn't get to see was all the pain I went through, all the bullying I went through. And, all that bullying became my internal language about not being good enough, about being dark skinned, like you name it, I was made fun of for it. And, when you don't have a parent that you feel is there listening to you, who do you go to? What do? You have no one saying, no, don't listen to them. That's not true. And you have this internal language, this internal dialogue that when you look in the mirror, that's all you see. Wayne Dyer says, if you change what you see, what you see will change. Well, I didn't know how to change what I saw. So no matter what I saw I wasn't good enough. I saw there was no self-worth. There was no self-esteem. I didn't even know what self-love was, looked like, or anything. So, I spent 21 years contemplating suicide. I tried to take my life at 15. I used to cut when I was 15. I was in a mental hospital when I was 15. And when I was 34 years old, I found Tony Robbins. By then I was a single mom of 2 boys, and I always said, I never want to be like my mom, raising kids by myself. And here I am finding myself raising kids by myself. But what I realized was when I left that first seminar is that I had a choice. I had a choice to stay in the victim, or I had a choice to change the way I live. And although I didn't know how that looked, I just realized that if I did something, it was better than doing nothing. And so I started, one of my mentors says, clean up your own backyard before you clean up somebody else's. So I started cleaning up my backyard. I started healing the wounds that I had. I started to redefine what my wounds meant. And I started to find the gifts in them. And then I realized, what if I went through all of this self-harm, bullying, suicidal tendencies, because I needed to teach that. So I got into the schools. I went all over the world talking about bullying and self-harm and suicide, helping kids learn that you don't need coping mechanisms. You need coping mechanisms when you can't change something. You can't change the weather, you cope with it. But to say you have to cope with what you're feeling gives you a presupposition that you can't change what you're feeling. And I taught them that they could. I gave them concrete strategies to change what they were seeing so what they see could change. And then I realized I got to get to the core. I got to get to the foundation of where does this all begin? It starts in the home. So, I worked after I got my degree in psychology in the homes, working with people with developmental disabilities. And I started seeing different behavior patterns between parents, different behavior patterns between children, whether they had special needs or not. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's really about the dynamics. It's the way our parents are parenting us. Are they, you and I were having a discussion. Are the parents doing too much for the kids so they don't know how to have critical thinking? They don't know how to solve their problems? Or are they not doing enough where the kids don't feel safe? They don't feel they could trust their parents. Is there so much judgment that kids feel that they're not enough that they can't go to their parents? And that's when I realized we have got to start to redefine what parenting really is. Parenting is about guiding. It's not about dictating.
As I say, but not I, but it's we. My wife went through a very similar experience during her younger years, from sexual abuse to school bullying. She had just come over from Africa to the UK, darker skin, so faced a lot of bullying, victimization, and like you, had to work through it. And you're right, there's a choice about how we approach these experiences that we can go through in life, and the good thing here is, the positive thing here is that there are choices that we as parents can make when we are exposed to information like this, versus just accepting the status quo and believe that we are powerless. And I think that's really what we're going to kind of dive deeper into. You mentioned this word redefining. So I want to look a little bit deeper at this concept of redefining parenting, and how we can use that concept to address some of the challenges that our kids and teens are kind of going through, that we as parents are either not aware of, but may say, it's just teenage stuff, or aware of and not sure what to do. So I know that's kind of a broad scope, but I think it all comes down to the same kind of conversation we're about to have here, which is children do go through challenges. Children, teens are going through challenges. And as parents, it is prudent of us to be aware of what could be, how they could show up, and what steps we can take as parents to guide our kids, in a direction that they can actually make choices to work through some of this stuff. So that's a big kind of starting point, but that's the work you've been doing for 25 years. So when you come across a family that their child is going through some of the things that you talked about, what is the first step parents to take? When you meet a family and they know that something's going on, whether it's bullying, victimization, whether it's in school, in person, or online, first of all, before you go into the what advice do you have for parents in terms of raising our awareness so that we don't just ignore what's going on?
So you're going to hear me say this a lot, but my favorite term is get curious, not critical. When we as parents make assumptions that we know, we see this, it happened to me when I was a kid, we all of a sudden contemplate what we think needs to happen instead of getting curious and asking. And that's what it is about redefining parents. Like, we have got to put down the baggage that we were raised, and we have to parent through fresh eyes to see our kids in different eyes, not as we were raised. When I was raised, it was, what they call spare the rod, spoil the child type syndrome, right? So we would get spanked and whatnot. But what did that do? How did that make me feel to get, spanked because I didn't listen? And it made us fear instead of make us go towards what we really wanted in life. And that's what we do. One of my mentors have always said, we do more to stay away from pain than we will to go to pleasure. But why? Because we're raising our kids that way. We have these assumptions that we know what's going on. We're not dumb. We see the internet. We know what's going on. But do we really? The only way we're really going to know what's going on, how to support them if we do figure out what's going on, how not to turn a blind eye or a deaf ear to it, is to get curious. Ask questions. Get your kids to engage with the conversation. Don't have this yes, no. How's school? Great. What did you have a problem with it? No. They're yes, no. I know I used to be that parent, especially when I was working 3 jobs, raising my 2 boys. It's, how was school? Great. Any problems? No. I'm like, great. What do you want for dinner? And in my mind, I'm like, oh, thank God, there's nothing I need to take care of today. And then I would, make them dinner. It's different now in my household. It's, how was today? It was great. What was great about it? What was the best thing that you got from today? If you had one magic moment from today, what was it? Did you have any issues at school today that I could support you on? Do you have any challenges with your reading or your math? I know you have a science test coming up. Is there anything I can do to support you to get through that science test? We open up hours of conversation just from this. And I mean hours, because I have twins and they're pretty yappy. So, asking both these twins these questions, it's allowing them to set them up to win. And what I mean by that, they're winning because they feel safe with me. They feel there's no judgment with me, and they feel that they can trust me because I'm having that conversation. I'm taking the time to be fully present with the conversations that we're having. This is how we redefine it. Because if we just get curious and ask better questions, we'll get better answers.
So let me kind of just in here. So I know when we start these methodologies with younger kids, they're far more adaptable. And as they grow older into teens, it's not some weird thing parents are starting to do, right? But I know that some parents who might be listening of older kids saying, I've tried talking to my kid. They just kind of give me one word answers. They kind of almost don't want me to ask questions. How can parents who are going through that kind of phenomenon, they want to take your advice, start asking becoming curious, but they're finding pushback from their teens? Any suggestions on what to do there?
Yeah, I would start getting curious about why they're pushing you back. So first of all, don't use the why question because it makes somebody defensive. Like, why are you pushing me back? And then their mind like, I don't know, like, why are you asking that question, right? Instead, just say, I notice that all I'm trying to do is create a conversation with you, and I feel some resilience. I feel some pushback. What does that mean to you? What does it mean that I'm asking these questions? And hear them. It means that you're being nosy. It means that you're asking too many questions. I don't know. I have a headache. Like you're talking too much. Okay, great. So when's a better time then? Because I really want to connect with you. That's one way. Another way is, what are your kids interested in? Some of the ways that I teach kids how to create friendships is you got to create that comfort zone. So if you and I were going to become friends, I'm not just going to be coming up to you saying, hi, I'm Vinu. How are you? You might be like, I'm good, because my energy might be too much for you because I don't even know how your energy realm is, right? There's people that have beautiful energy, but they're more grounded. There's people like me that's loud and happy and bubbly. So it's how do we create that comfort? It's dial it down. How was your day? I know that you have this sports thing coming up, and can you give me some more information about it? What are you excited about your sports activity that's coming up? And all of a sudden you start to dive. So they have that comfort zone to come in and say, oh, this is something I know. So I have absolute certainty that I can answer these questions. It's not something that mom's going to judge me for, or, I'm going to get in trouble for. So yeah, I feel safe. Let me go ahead and have this conversation. So you got to start building. It's like building blocks. You're not going to just get to the top of the pyramid. You got to take one block at a time to get there.
I asked you a question earlier, and I'm going to ask this question in two ways from two different perspectives now, but I believe your answer is going to be the same. So one is parents who, and this is something I said myself to you not a few minutes ago, which was kids and teens of today are facing a very different set of challenges to when we were kids, right? And then kids might say something similar, which is, Mom, Dad, you don't understand the pressure we're under, right? Things are different in our age. But you gave me a different perspective, which was, it's actually not that different, just the way things are coming at us are different. So can you just kind of touch upon that, which is the core issues actually haven't really dramatically changed from when we were kids to the kids of today?
Sure. So I explained it as, it's not much difference because we're all under the umbrella of judgment. The influences, what they have, what I don't have, what my parents can do, what your parents can do. That was still happening when we were growing up. The difference is the logistics part of it has changed because we didn't have the internet then. We didn't have all these different social media platforms. I'm constantly, because I work with kids, so I'm kind of lucky. I get up to date on, the different social networks that are around, the social media that these kids are in. The other thing that has changed is that I feel has changed is the way we're influenced. We're allowed now to talk more openly about subjects that were taboo when I was growing up. We never talked about if you were gay. We never talked about, do you feel like you're a boy in a girl's body? It's just, if you're a girl, you're a girl. If you're a boy, you're a boy. And now I'm not making this up. I would say 30% of my clients that I work with are girls, and their pronouns are he, they. They want to be dressed as a he or a they. And I've given them permission because I want to respect them. And that is why they get along with me, because I respect them. It doesn't matter what I believe in that moment. It doesn't matter what my thought processes are in the moment. In that moment, how could I be open, safe, and trusting for this child who's a teenager to share with me their mindset of what's going on? And let me tell you, every Disney channel, every Nickelodeon channel, all these channels that we had to when we were growing up are now introducing these kids that are gay or, non-binary, and so our kids are influenced. It's all about the influence, the judgment. And to be honest, my take on all of this is to be normal is to be overlooked. To be different, you attract. And if you're different, this community accepts you the way you are. And everybody wants to be accepted. Nobody wants to be lonely. Lonely is what drives us to suicidal thoughts. It's loneliness. It wasn't because I was sad and depressed, I wanted to kill myself. I felt lonely. I felt like I was not a part of a bigger picture outside of me. I had one or two friends, but nobody chose to invite me to the parties. Nobody chose to pick me, to do this or that. And so it was a loneliness feeling. And it's like, if I'm lonely now, why am I going to stay in this lonely bubble the rest of my life? I might as well leave now. When kids are being bullied and they're suicidal, it's because they feel ostracized. They feel lonely. Nobody gets them. No one's hearing them. And the parents are like, I love you. Let me solve this. I don't understand. I'll go to the school for you. You can go to the school all you want. It's not taking away the fact your child still feels lonely. It's that loneliness that we need to deal with.
Since you opened up that door, and I know this is kind of on one end of the extreme, but let's just touch upon it. You talked about self-harming and you talked about suicidal tendencies. For parents who either want to be more informed about this, or parents who might suspect there may be some of that conversation going on in their child or teen's head, what are the steps that they can take to start addressing this?
Get curious, ask questions, find out who are they hanging out with, what lights your kids up. Do you know how many kids I'll ask, what lights you up? And they'd say, I don't know. How do you not know what lights you up as a kid? I mean, a freaking candy bar would have lit me up as a kid, So these kids don't know. Because when they say, I don't know, when your child says, I don't know, let me tell you what they're really saying. I don't know if I'm going to give you the right answer. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble if I tell you what I say. I don't know if you're going to judge me. I don't know if you're going to stop loving me. I don't know if this really means I'm not enough. Are you going to see me as not enough? That's what I don't know means.
Where is the root of this I don't know coming from? Like, what age does it start, and where does this come from? Like, this was not necessarily the case, say, couple of generations ago, and probably most parents who are listening probably can't relate to this level of I don't know. So is this just a degeneration? Is it coming from somewhere specifically?
I think I don't know has been around for every generation, because it started out as a kid. Who took the cookie from the cookie jar? I don't know. So there was already like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble if I tell you the truth. I don't know if I know I made the wrong decision, but I don't know what my punishment is going to be. And I don't know is something that kids would find as like kind of like a buffer to save them, to give them time to think, okay, what's the right answer here? And I think that I don't know has grown even more. I mean, in our generation, I know my mom would say, she would say something and she's like, and I don't want to hear, I don't know, because you do know. Oh, So I knew that no matter what, I had to tell my mom whatever it was, because she was already going to lay the ground rules that I don't know is not an answer. So, I mean, that still plays in my head. And I'm not going to confirm or deny that I've used that many times with my older kids. I don't know is not an answer. But now when my children say, I don't know, I say, I don't know what. I don't know if you're going to tell me the right answer. I don't know if you're going to be in trouble. I don't know if you're going to think that I have, a comment about it. What is it that you don't know, really? And there's times if I ask my child, what's the square root of 20? He might say, I don't know, because he really, really does not know at 9 years old. Right? So how do you decipher? How do you decipher is that they really don't know versus all the other caveats of I don't know? You got to get curious.
You've been doing this work now over 25 years. You refer to it as redefining parenting. What does that mean? When you could take 25 years of wisdom, experience, working with probably every type of family situation, and box this up. What does redefining parenting mean in this day and age?
It's to be open to understanding what parenting is and not put it under one definition. I did an article in a magazine a couple of years ago saying, take off the labels. We as parents already have so much pressure of, are we making the right decision? Are we a good parent? Are we doing this right? And do we really need conscious parenting as a title, mindful parenting as a title, helicopter parenting as a title? I talk about this in my week 2 in my I have a 6-week online program for parenting, and week 2 is all about this. If I'm already struggling to know if I'm making the right decisions for my kids, and all of a sudden I'm studying conscious parent, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm never going to get this conscious parenting thing down. God, there's so many ways to do this. Why not just take off all the titles and be the parent your child needs you to be? Does your child need for you to sit on the floor with them and really take them through the process of getting dressed, because that's how they get quality time from you? Or does your child need that independence where they don't need you hovering and you just got to tell them what to do and they've got it? What is going to light your child up and give your child the learning that they need now without having a title? Just be the parent that your child needs to be. And honestly, that's what I think redefining parenting is all about, is giving up the titles, giving up with the ideology of what parenting is, and just be the parent your child needs you to be.
When we first become parents, and I'm sure most parents are going to relate to this, and we hold our sons, daughters for the very first time, we as parents, at least I believe, at least I'm going to speak for myself here, I'm not going to speak for anybody watching here, it's that magical moment, which is I want to be the best parent possible. I want my child to be happy. And then I've noticed, I've caught myself doing things, whether it's been conscious or unconscious, that actually, I'm going to use a word here, probably negatively impacts the future of my child. Right? Let's use, I think you talk about this concept of, our kids having to heal from the things sometimes that we as parents do, and the things they also will experience in life. And I believe you have a workshop coming up, a masterclass coming up, where it's how we can give our children a childhood that they don't need to heal from, right? Could you just explain what that title means to you, and is that even really possible?
So that title means to me personally, because if I am a mom and I am parenting my children so they know they're worth it, if I'm parenting my children so they know that their esteem is the thing that leads them through their way, that they have that confidence, that they see how they look and they appreciate their looks. I say worth is how we feel, esteem is how we see ourselves, and if I am parenting my child to know, you know what, it's time that you help out with some chores because you are worth it. You're worth being a part of this family. And I want you to know what that feels like, to have pride in doing something that not only you get to be prideful about how it turned out, but you get to know that you helped mom and dad, as busy as we are, that you did that because you are worth it. And not only that, you get to show me that me and daddy are worth it, that we're worth not worrying about that. All of a sudden, these kids' worth is coming up, right? The way that we say, those that matter don't mind. Those that mind don't matter. If my son is on the basketball court and he makes a mistake and someone's like, hey, why did you do that? Like, that was so stupid. That was such a mistake. He can own it and say, you're right. It was a mistake. And I learned from it. So can we just get back to playing? Versus like going in a show going, oh gosh, I made a mistake. Oh my gosh, everybody's looking at me. They don't go into the judgment. They go into, okay, yeah, I own it. It was a mistake. But you know what we teach them? You learn from your mistakes. Every mistake is worth making because you're going to learn from it. I didn't teach my older boys that. And that is why when they lost a soccer game, they're in the bleachers crying over losing a game. And it's okay that they felt that they did their best and they lost. My kids now don't cry when they lose a game. They're like, oh, that really sucked, Mom. It did. And what did we learn? What are you going to do differently next time? I need to communicate better. Okay, great. And what would that look like to you? All these questions of curiosity build my kids' worth. My daughter, and I'll tell you, this is like such a beautiful story. 2 years ago, my daughter came home and she told me, she goes, yeah, Mom, this girl doesn't like me. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she goes, well, I asked her, like, can I play with you guys on the playground? And she looked at me and she goes, no, we don't like you. And I said, huh? I said, gosh, that must have hurt. She goes, well, it kind of did, but then I just went to the other people that did like me and did like to play with me. So I don't care. It's her loss because she didn't get to do all the things that we got to do. We did cartwheels. We did this, we did that. And I thought to myself, and I told my husband later, I'm like, this is why we're doing this. Because it's like almost like a reflection, like a shield around her that it just bounced off. She didn't let it penetrate her like I used to let it penetrate me. That's not her internal language. And this is why it's so empowering.
And I think it's so important. Hopefully parents watching this will know that whatever's going on, there are choices we can make, as parents, right? That what doesn't have to be that way. There are ways of positively impacting our kids. There are ways of bringing our kids back into the fold in terms of that connection that often can get lost between parent and child. And sometimes it's use the word strategies, but methodologies, maybe a better word in this context, that are proven, that you used over 25 years to heal, but what the kids are going through, to heal what parents are going through, and to heal what they're going through as families, right? Versus just accepting that this is what it is. We have no choice. It's just life, which is a very unfortunate place to come from when they are the future generation.
Right.
So much potential can be held back simply because a child didn't get given the confidence or given the aspiration to do something about their situation. And we, as I said, we are living at a time when judging and being judged are amplified by the social media and the tools that we all have access to, and not just the kids. I think there's a lot of parents who can probably relate to this and say, well, I know you're talking about kids here, but geez, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying right now.
Right.
and even that's important, because if it's impacting us as parents, they are getting the influence of that, right? If you're having a bad day because someone on social media says something and you're kind of, as a parent, oohing and eyeing and whatever, our kids see all of that. And whether they agree with it or not, they are kind of, what's the word, adopting that kind of behavior through their own filters, which is, a double whammy almost in many ways. This masterclass you have coming up, how to give our kids the childhood they don't need to heal from. Why should a parent invest 1 hour of their time? I believe it's an hour workshop to join you for that. And what can they expect in terms of takeaways from that masterclass?
So, I always used to, be like, oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. And what I realized is that I will always be able to make another dollar. What I cannot get back is my time. So I value time probably more than I value anything, because I can't get that time back. So if I'm willing to invest my time, I need to make sure it's valuable. And by spending an hour with me, it's going to give you a snapshot of looking at your own parenting. Not that you're doing anything wrong, but what could you do better? What is it that you're not seeing? How many times are we going to say, but I didn't know? You don't know what you don't know. And I have the outcome of not knowing my adult kids that don't have a lot of self-worth. They don't have a lot of self-esteem. And there's different circumstances that added to it. But I definitely, as a parent, didn't do anything to change it, because I was parenting through my old baggage, my wounds that had not been healed yet. But now that they are healed, I'm able to raise my other children in a loving environment that supports them, their growth. As parents, we have got to learn how to stop, self-beating and self-building, and teaching our kids to do the same thing. And part of the things that I'm going to teach are sustainable strategies on what does it really mean to get curious and not critical? What does it mean to have an open, trusting, safe space for your kids to communicate with you? And what will you benefit from just changing like 2 millimeters of how you parent now? Would that be worth an hour of your time? Would it be worth an hour of your time to get your kids to respond versus react? To have you not come home and say, oh my God, I need a glass of wine because this is just after my day, and then the kids, and oh my gosh. What if you didn't have those nights anymore? What if I was able to give you strategies for you to be able to enjoy versus be upset and angry and frustrated because kids aren't listening? That's what you'll get in that hour with me. Sustainable strategies that you can use right away to get the changes that you want in your life, to bring that peace back into your home.
You have a very lovely saying, it's actually a very powerful saying, is be curious, not critical. When I read that in your information, is like simple advice, but not always easy to adhere to naturally. I think we as parents can be overly critical. As much as we love our kids, as kids grow older, our expectations grow with that. And I think it's so important that the fundamentals that you are looking to teach parents here, as simple as curiosity versus being critical of everything they do, because we're seeing it through our biases and our lenses. So I really hope people watching will take advantage of that masterclass that you're doing. I believe as parents, that we have choices. I was fortunate enough to, you mentioned it earlier, but came across some very a couple of different parenting programs when my kids were very young, and I definitely feel it gave me a lot more awareness. Not necessarily made me a perfect parent, but at least gave me a more awareness that there are tools available out there that we as parents can use and learn to use, that hopefully will allow our kids to live into their potential without the hindrance from so many of the different environmental things that they're going to experience, from schooling to social media, and even to us as parents, that even though we don't mean to, sometimes it's our very own actions that will often impede our kids more than anything else out there. So again, thank you so much. Now, people want to join your masterclass. What's the best link that they can go and explore more or learn more about the masterclass?
So it's Zoom. I would have to put it in a chat because it's like a pretty long thing, but it's on my Facebook page. It's in my group, Vinu Inspires. So if they were on Facebook, they can go there and go to Vinu Inspires.
We'll make sure we put we drop the link as well. So we'll make sure we get that done, so people can just click on it and join the masterclass. Vinu, first of all, just thank you for taking up some of your time here to talk to our many of our fundamental parents who are watching, that they've taken a proactive, progressive approach to. They understand that not all of these things that we are talking about in these interviews are taught in schools. It's not necessarily the teacher's fault. We're not here to make the schools feel feel guilty, or it's just that the schools have a certain role and we as parents have a certain role, and it's a collaboration effect, that we as parents must understand that not everything that our kids need to learn, we call the fundamentals, such as financial intelligence, mental health, emotional health, relationships, even physical health, are some of the topics that schools have the opportunity to dive deep into. So again, thank you again so much for joining us. We'll make sure that we put the right link out there with when this goes out to our fundamental parenting group, and they can take some value from this, also take that next step and sign up for your masterclass. So again, any last words of advice that you'd like to leave the parents with who are watching?
Thank you for having me on this. Like, I feel like people like you and me, the more we're out there to support our kids, our generation, the better this world's going to be for us. And, I'd always tell parents, our kids don't do what we say, they do what they see and they hear. And that becomes their internal language as well. So continue to be curious, not critical, let them know they're worth it, and just keep loving them.
Great. Thank you so much. And if you're curious to learn more about the Financial Freedom Program, stay tuned. We'll be sharing that right after this break.